Hello, everybody. We're back.
Hello.
And we
Hi.
have our third with us again. Regular thing, right? Kelly, gonna hang out with us or what?
Hopefully, yeah. I'd like to keep my spot.
Heck yeah, on the Eiffel Tower. You look good
Yeah.
there, Kel.
Yeah.
Thanks.
We don't know what the background is. We think
We
it might be
don't.
the bottom of the Eiffel Tower, but whatever. There's a Latin inscription, if anybody knows
I
what
was just gonna say there's
we thought if we read it, we might accidentally summon like Gozer or something, like some sort of
Ooh.
shit will happen. So we decided.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
would advise against summoning.
I don't think we
Anyway.
need that now.
Welcome back for another Friday of like fun and frivolity with recovery concepts and all kinds of good stuff. With me, as always, is Lauren. Lauren Wave, just so everybody knows that Lauren.
Hello, that's
Lauren
me.
Rosen. Kelly Franke below me. Hey, Kelly, how you doing?
Hi.
Yep. Both working therapists in the sunny state of California, specializing in OCD and anxiety disorders. Right.
And
It's raining. It's raining here.
It's
It
raining.
is raining.
All right.
Is it raining in New York as
once
well,
a year,
or is it snowing?
We had snow last night. It's raining today, though.
Slush. So now you have slush.
Delightful.
Yeah. Yep.
And if anyone's joining from either Kelly or my pages, this right here is Drew Linsalata. He's awesome. And he is actually in the midst of studying to become a licensed therapist in the state of New York City. What?
That would get you lynched here.
Yeah,
the state of New York City.
You would be run out of the state and the city for that.
Dude, are you fucking this up, man?
Oh, she's pulling the Walter on us.
Dude.
Nothing.
Don't tell. I messed it up. Oh no.
The bag man. Sorry.
It's my cold. I lived in New York City for a year. I just, anyway, the point, Walter, is that Drew is going to be a therapist in New York, and he's wonderful, and he's already written lots of books, and he does lots of wonderful stuff on Instagram and on YouTube. So you should check him out if you aren't already familiar with him.
Yeah. Why weren't you going to leave and Kelly to do her Lebowski?
That might be all that I got today, but we'll see.
Royal we and
the royal we.
Anyway, today we thought we would talk about, last time the three of us got together in the conversation, the abstinence violation effect. Is that what it is? Came up?
That's what it is.
And, us being nerdy about this sort of stuff, I had to key into that because it seemed so interesting. So, Lauren, you're the one that sort of threw it in there. What is that? And how are we going to relate that today?
Yeah, so it's generally brought up in the context of recovery from substance use disorder. And oftentimes the goal of recovery from substance use disorder, though not always, but oftentimes abstinence is the goal. Which in many ways, it's not different from what we're talking about here with OCD and anxiety disorders. The goal is, in many respects, to abstain from safety behaviors and or compulsions, depending on which disorder we're talking about. And so when the idea in the substance use disorder realm is that when somebody violates their abstinence, i.e. uses drugs, drinks, when they're intending to abstain ongoing, there's oftentimes something called the abstinence violation effect that occurs. I have encyclopedia.com right here to enlighten us, which says the abstinence violation effect occurs when an individual, having made a personal commitment to abstain from using a substance or to cease engaging in some other unwanted behavior, has an initial lapse whereby the substance or behavior is engaged in at least once. Some individuals may then proceed to uncontrolled use. The abstinence violation effect occurs when the person attributes the cause of the initial lapse, the first violation of abstinence, to internal, stable, and global factors within, like lack of willpower or the underlying addiction or disease. And so the idea here is we wanted to talk about what happens when somebody does a compulsion or does a safety behavior after a period of resisting, and then goes, well, screw it, I've already messed it up, I might as well keep going.
Yeah.
And chaos ensues.
Yeah, and that's a pretty common theme. That is before we hit the record button, we were talking about, I haven't had a panic attack in 3 weeks, and I had one, so that's it. All bets are off.
Over.
Yeah. Or I haven't Googled my symptoms, or I haven't asked my wife for reassurance in 2 weeks, and I did it last night, and that's it. I'm in a spiral now. I'm in a setback.
Might as well
Totally.
just keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. Might as well just keep going, just keep digging that
Let it
hole.
ride.
Yeah, but I think that's what people, and it's so funny when you said that. I can relate to, like, yeah, I've been really doing great and dropping weight, but I blew it this morning, and
I
I
was gonna
had a
say,
bagel, so I'll just eat 2 pizzas for the rest of the day because I might as well.
right. The
Right.
Which is
working out,
actually
the eating, I was gonna say that's definitely like really common to see too.
Yeah. Yeah. I get
super
that.
common. And yet it sort of points to the problem, I think, with abstinence in those areas in particular, because it's not just saying like I'm never going to eat this or I'm always going to do this. It's not always realistic. Now, with substance use disorder, yeah, abstinence can be a thing, but when we're looking at things like behaviors like Google searching, right? Like that's
Mhm.
something that you're going to do in your life anyway. And so you're going to sometimes lapse into doing it for the wrong reasons and not realize that you've done it until after the fact.
Makes sense. So when you guys see this, like in the OCD world, am I throwing in the towel? Well, I did it. I gave into my compulsions this morning, so I'm just going to keep doing them. Is that a common occurrence?
That and I'd say also not doing exposure work. So you might send your client home with an exposure log and they have a list of things that they have to do or that they've been assigned to do. And then they don't do one and they're like, ugh, they come back the next week. They're like, I didn't even do any of them because that first one I just didn't do. So I figured, right, Lauren, does that happen to you?
Absolutely. No, that's so spot on.
Right. Or
And
even like, I won't go to therapy because I didn't do it.
yes. Oh,
Wait,
that comes up all the
no.
time.
Yeah, like we'll do it together then in session. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've kind of heard similar things like that. I didn't want to say this in the group, for instance, like in my Facebook group. They're like
Oh,
reluctantly. I didn't want to say it because I am going to disappoint. Like I ruined it. I did it wrong with
yeah.
disappointing you guys. Like, oh, hang on. So people would actually skip the next session because I just won't
Yeah, yeah.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, isn't it
Shame
part of
too, part of it.
Right. That's what I was just thinking.
very much so. And I think part of it is this cultural narrative that we have that somehow whipping ourselves for making choices that we somehow dislike or would not repeat is an effective way of changing things, which I have yet to find that to be true, unfortunately, or fortunately or
Yeah.
unfortunately. That usually we don't,
Yeah.
we don't learn that way.
Unrealistic expectations. When you said like, abstinence, so I'm never going to do a compulsion ever again, or else my recovery isn't recovery. That can't be.
Actually, it's the opposite, right? Like you can't recover without including compulsions, I would say.
You have,
Like,
if you don't stumble.
yeah, then how are you going to, first of all, learn how to come back from that? You're not going to recover very well because it's going to happen regardless.
Yeah.
So you have to learn where the traps are. You have to be willing to fall constantly. So then you can have this roadmap of navigating the real world, like actually using Google, because you're going to have to use Google.
Yeah. And then on top of it, what we see a lot of is that then people, and we've talked about this, I think, even on here, is that the fixation becomes, I need to make sure I never do a compulsion or a safety behavior, because if I do, then something bad will happen. And then people start to go back and forth about whether or not something is this a compulsion? Well, I don't want to do it if it's a compulsion. Maybe it is. And then the ruminating and it's a mess. So really that becomes the fixation and the point of eliciting more anxiety and less time doing the things that matter to you.
Yeah.
Right. Like everything hinges on this one choice or this one behavior. But the reality is like, okay, you did compulsions. Let's do it differently tomorrow.
Yeah. That kind of speaks to that desire to try and completely control the experience all the time. I need to be 100% sure that I'm doing it right, that I'm progressing, I'm getting better. And if it doesn't feel that way, then I start to get lost in the rat's maze of thinking and analyzing. Yeah. But to me, I always try and tell people, like, go ahead and recover imperfectly, because like you said, Kelley, that teaches you the most lessons. Like, have all the experiences. You need them all,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Make mistakes. It's okay.
Yeah, you have to. Um, or when people come in and they're like, I did all these things, I didn't do all these things, and like they did a really gnarly exposure, and they're like, but I did this small compulsion, like, or this compulsion. And I'm like, okay, but you did like all these other intensely anxiety provoking things. So you did a compulsion. Okay, now this week we'll do it differently. We'll do it like this, right? So it's not all or nothing. It's not all quote unquote
Yeah.
fucked.
Yeah. I think one of the really interesting things in this definition too, which I like, it was kind of a surprise because I hadn't read that far. But the idea of when we attribute the lapse to something that's internal to us, that's stable,
Mhm.
that's unchangeable, right? Like I just don't have the willpower to do this, or
Ooh,
it's
yeah.
impossible, or I can't, right? We see this come up all the time, that when the choice, right? Like, so it's almost like a choose your own adventure book, right? So you do a compulsion or a safety behavior, and then you can either go down path A, which is to that story, right? Like, oh, I just can't, like, I can't do it. I'm not good enough. What's wrong with me? I'll never get better. Or you can go to this isn't a stable condition, right? Like we can then start to go, well, yeah, I did this thing, but I'm not thrilled about it. I prefer not to do it again, but it's not about me. It's not because I did something wrong, or because I'm like
Mhm.
I did something that I'd prefer not to repeat, but I'm not a bad human or incapable because of it. So like, I don't know, I see a really important fork in the road there in terms of how what we're attributing it to. Like either, well, of course you're going to compulse because it's normal, or you compulsed because you suck at this and you're going to be trapped forever.
Yeah. I maybe made a mistake, but that now I'm going to find meaning in that mistake, that I'm a bad person, or I'm incapable, I'm weak, I can't ever get better, I'm
Yeah.
irreparably broken. Yeah, that's the part that we don't need.
Yeah.
That's the part where I think restructuring thoughts is helpful.
I
How so?
agree.
Because these are all cognitive distortions, right? What we're talking about is very all or nothing. It's perfectionistic. It should be, it shouldn't be, it's catastrophic. It's all like the hallmarks of setting somebody up for depression and anxiety. Without, take OCD out of the picture, is like those aren't helpful thought patterns. Is like, well, there's a lot of factors going on in a person's life, and there's a lot of evidence that shows that you are capable and willing to experience these uncomfortable things, and that you have the ability to do this. So that's why it is also so important that we work with people's thoughts.
Yeah.
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 And expectations, so that the experience is going to be really varied. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to look like a textbook.
No.
That's
Yeah.
life. Like, people that aren't doing anxiety recovery of some kind blow it. I didn't go to the gym yesterday, or didn't do the last set. Like, that's just life, right? So
Yeah.
it's a very
Yeah.
act like. Everybody's going to screw up all the time. It's what we do. So
Yes.
start from that premise and let's go from there.
Yeah. The growth mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. We're all going to mess up. So what do you do when you mess up? That's what we care about more than anything else.
Right. It's an opportunity versus it's a failure.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, here we are, like, trying to bring it back to that whole, like, and I just see it all the time, like, recovery, my streak, it's broken. This was perfect. And now if it's not perfect, then it's nothing. That's the black and white.
Right.
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I'm back at square one too. There's that aspect of it, which I think we talked about last time, but
Yeah. Let's talk for a second, if we could, about the idea of responsibility, though, because this is one that sometimes gets a little bit dicey, because people hear responsibility as blame. They interchange those two things when they don't belong. They're not interchangeable. So, like, but in this situation, that screw up in a way, and I know this is sometimes catches heat or is controversial, their choice there. So I made a choice to do that. I made it.
accountability, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
But in a way, like, okay, recognizing that I actually was an active part of that system. I was one of the cogs in the machine there. it's not
Mhm.
entirely out of
Yes.
your control, is not a bad thing. So we're not saying like that's your fault, you screwed up. It's, oh no, you have influence there, so I could do it different next
Yeah.
time. Yeah,
Totally. And
Yeah.
that, like, when we were talking about that, like, fork in the road,
yeah,
it's interesting because when you start to beat up on yourself, it seems like you're taking responsibility, but what you're actually doing is suggesting that it's something that is outside of your control. Well,
That's right.
I'm just fundamentally flawed. I guess I can't do it, right? Like, and so it's weird, right? Because you would think, oh, well, you're really taking accountability for that, but actually, the accountability comes in the other side of the path, which is in saying, "Ooh, I didn't love that. Ooh, like that didn't. I didn't like how that turned out, and I maybe I made a choice that I would prefer not to repeat." But that, like, you have to have that in order to take that next step.
yeah. Or you
Right.
finish the statement or ask the logical question. Okay, I screwed up, or I didn't like how that felt. What can I do differently? Whether
Yes.
you're asking your therapist or you're asking your support group, whatever it is, guys, what can I do different next time? That's accountability, right? That's responsibility.
That is. And also saying like, "Oh, okay, so I know under these certain conditions, my brain is likely wanting to compulse," right? Like, because there are some certain circumstances where people it's just harder to resist. It's just harder because life's difficult sometimes or all the time, but more difficult in certain situations where, okay, we're going to accept that you're likely to have more intrusive thoughts and exposures are going to be a little bit harder right now and resisting compulsions will be a little bit harder. But if we can give ourselves a little bit of grace here and self-compassion, then we can say, okay, next time I'm going to do this.
Yeah. Well, a recognition of the context is probably pretty important. No, because
Sometimes, yeah, sometimes.
yeah, this is a thing. I mean, I've heard the OCD community talk about it more than any other. Like, my dog is sick and my kids are acting up in school and I had a big fight with my husband and whatever it is. And everything got stickier and louder then for the last 4 days. That's a thing,
For
correct?
sure. And with this caveat that sometimes it just happens too, and there's everything's going just grand, right? And OCD can come up because people do get hung up on, oh, well, I don't understand why I'm feeling so anxious, or I don't understand why I'm having such a hard time.
Yeah.
Everything is good. And then that's a trap too. So, but yes, anxiety in general does not like change. It's like, no, we do not do it this way. And this is
No.
about, yeah, like generating psychological flexibility in reality. That's kind of the work we're doing here.
Yeah. Yeah. Even when things are bad, I'm staying, finishing my
Yeah. I am finishing my coffee.
I'm staying, dude. Finishing my
Yeah.
coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know how much more we can say about this. I think it's really important that people understand that the streak, I blew it.
There is no streak
There's no
though.
streak. That's right. Like,
Yeah.
don't build recovery streaks. That's pointless. It makes no sense. Don't build those streaks in anything. Like,
Mm-mm.
I like to meditate, and I got caught a few times. Like, oh, I broke my streak. Like the stupid Insight Timer app or whatever, the one I like.
Mhm.
Stop telling me how many days in a row I did this, because that's bad.
Yes.
Like, then you're gonna want to make me do. Of course, there's a reason why they do that, but so I try. Don't do streaks anywhere. Streaks are silly. That's dumb.
Well, yeah, but the only
Mm.
reason they're doing that is because they want you to come
Don't you
back.
open the app.
They're playing on your anxiety.
Right.
They're playing on your anxiety. Headspace does like a
Ulterior
minute.
motive.
It counts minutes actually.
Like
Interesting.
cumulative minutes, so that if you skip a day,
Mm.
you're not a horrible human.
No. Interesting though.
Insight,
Hmm.
I
I'm
like
like,
Insight Timer, but Insight Timer is a little bit, because your stars get brighter, more stars, and then all of a sudden,
Wow.
the stars are gone.
Oh shit, I would
It's
oh
hate that.
11:59 and
man.
I forgot. Like, yeah,
Oh yeah, yeah.
I love
yeah,
that we've all got different ones. Like a 10% happier, it does sometimes track the number of days you're doing it in a row.
yep,
But it's not like anything super flashy in terms of like, you win the golden ticket for having meditated again today. Um, but yeah, I think it's hard because on the other hand, it can be sort of helpful to get into a routine with something, to set goals and to try to show up in a disciplined way. But it
mhm,
is, as always, this sort of middle ground of having that flexibility to say like, okay, well, I didn't make it that day, right? I've had the last couple of years this goal of meditating daily, and I haven't met it at, like, last year, didn't make it 100% of the time. But if I had left it there, I wouldn't be to the point where I'm now meditating 15 minutes a day, right? Most of the time. So there has to be a little there's both, I'd say the vast majority of the days I've meditated, right? But that's uh, because I've been willing to hold myself accountable after the choice, of like I didn't make it happen yesterday and I'm disappointed, or oh my gosh, I can't believe I forgot. Okay, well then back to square one. Here we are. It's okay. I'm not square one, but like back to the drawing board, and we move forward from here.
Yeah, back on the horse tomorrow. I think we're kind of, Kelley, you got to know it go, I know, but we're kind of immersed in that sort of culture a little bit too, where like my fitness, there's so many apps and so many things where like, and we're told, consistency every day, man, every day, that hardcore mindset thing that you see, especially for men. I will tell you that, in that community, like you see a lot of dudes with beards bigger than mine talking about like being hardcore, man. And you get up at 4 in the morning and do your reading and do your 75 hard. Okay. But you can't always do that. And it drives
be productive. Right.
Yeah. So a little tough. So
perfectionism.
That's part of it too, for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. So I guess, to wrap it up a little bit, we're a little shorter than we usually are this week, but that's okay. 20 minutes. We're good. If you think you ruined your streak or you're really down on yourself,
there was never a streak.
There was never a streak. You broke your streak and somehow you're judging that and trying to find meaning in it and berating yourself for that. Don't do that. Well, you guys tell your clients in this situation.
Knock it off. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. There's the Bob Newhart school, as we've talked about, of stop it, right? Like, just stop that. I mean, I think, and I wanted to call into what you said at the very beginning, which is also that if our expectation of recovery is that it's going to be a total absence of thoughts and feelings, then we're also in a mess. And if we're sort of gauging recovery in that way, then when they do come back, that we are going to get caught in the all or none thinking around, well, now I'm screwed forever too. Even though that's not a behavior per se.
Yeah.
Right.
Kelley, how would you wrap it up? You got a client that's being very undued. What would you tell them?
They're being really very undued. What I do is I tell them to check it at the door. Usually I get kind of aggressive about it. And I explain what we just explained is like, that's what's actually getting in the way of you recovering. That's what's getting in the way. And we have to be kind to ourselves. And sometimes I'll even assign them exposures where they're actively doing it part way. They're doing the halfway mark.
Yeah. Doing it wrong is the exposure. Your assignment is to do it wrong.
Yeah. Get a C, not an A.
Oh, I love it. That's good. That's good advice. I like how you said you get aggressive about it. I think a lot of people miss that part. When your therapist gets a little bit in your face, they're trying to help.
Yeah. I mean, you got to test the room, know who you're talking to, but usually I'm like, we can't do that. We can't do it because I've seen it get in the way of my recovery. It was one of the biggest factors in getting in the way of my recovery.
Right.
So,
well done. It's always fun doing this with you guys. Do it again next month.
Yeah.
Likewise. Yeah.
Don't know what we're going to talk about, but we'll be here. So, as usual. Anyway, we'll wrap it up. Thanks you guys for coming by and checking it out. This will stay on my YouTube channel. And I don't know if you guys are going to put it up on wherever your outlets are, but
yes,
you can still find Kelley. Have Kelley on the bottom of the screen at the OCD therapist, right, on Instagram. Lauren is at the obsessive mind on Instagram. What am I on Instagram?
You're the.anxious.truth.
Yes.
Got to get rid of those periods at some point, but whatever. We'll figure it out. So anyway, all the links are there. You can find us all and keep this here and comment. I'll drag them back into the comments if you guys come up with something in a couple of weeks.
Okay. Thanks for having us.
Good. Thanks for having us on.
Next time. Later, guys.
Bye.
Bye.